All right, folks, I'm back at it again. Late night vlogging with Dwight Alex Douglas. It's the end of the week, Friday. And trust me when I say it's been a wild week. Normally I would try to dabble into some sports a little bit, maybe cover a little bit of NBA, but this week has been extraordinarily historical. And primarily because of what we kind of talked about last week and the fragility of democracy. So today being the 8th, 2 days ago on the 6th, there was an insurrection at the Capitol, and there were protesters, pro-Trump protesters that stormed the Capitol. To date, 5 people have died, one from trying to rush a secured space inside the Capitol, and then 3 others from medical emergencies, heart attacks, strokes, that kind of thing. And then another one was a Capitol police officer. It's been a wild day on a couple of days ago, and the dust is still settling on it. I've been looking up online quite a bit. I've been following a lot of the developments on it, and I got a few takes. So as we dive into it, we won't mistake the fact that our boy Don Don has got an arrest warrant out for his arrest, not for the incitement of violence at the Capitol, but Iraq. Iraq issued an arrest warrant for Donald Trump for the killing of Soleimani, their defensive minister over there in Iraq. Woo, child. His travel options just got limited by another country. Yep, we know where he's not going on January 21st. So, with that developing news, along with what has happened in Washington on Wednesday, it's been a wild week. It's been a wild week. Ultimately, democracy preserved, and they were able to certify the election. And a lot of the news organizations and stuff have carried the coverage darn near about 24/7. And so I've been trying to keep up with it all. And I wanted to give a few takes on some of the things that stick out to me the most, that they aren't necessarily alluding to, because see, they are journalists, whereas I am just like a freelance pundit. So I have a little more freedom to kind of say what I feel. And I have done projections in the past, and they have worked. Like when Donald got into office, I projected that he would get impeached based on some of the things that were controversial around the time he got elected and the stories that were coming out in regards to like election fraud and then the Russia stuff and the statements he made on the campaign trail. And I made a bet to a guy at work. I was like, he's going to get impeached. He won't get removed because, of course, the Republicans still control the Senate, but he will get impeached. Sure enough. So there's been that and a few other things of much smaller variety. But in this situation, there's some stuff that I foresee. And let me lay it out to you. So, one the basis, the meats and potatoes of what happened on Wednesday is that, of course, the weeks leading up to January 6th, they were posting on a lot of far-right conservatives, social media platforms and websites about the 6th and coming out. It's going to be wild, I think Donald tweeted out. They were super duper excited about making sure people came out for January 6th when they certified the election in Congress. And they viewed it as an opportunity to lay their case to the American public, right? So that day, and no doubt, all of the far-right extremists and white supremacists and all those folks came out as they've been planning on it, because with the request of the commander-in-chief. Well, at the rally in front of the White House, Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump Jr. and Donald Trump, in essence, incite the protesters of the rally to go down the street to the Capitol and take over the Capitol, in essence. Now, I mean, the exact words were things like, we're going to do trial by combat, and if we're going to take our country back, we got to use strength. And they used all these insightful words to hope that their people would go down there. And Donald even said he's going with them. And he said, we're going to go to the Capitol, and I'm going to go with you. And the fellow went straight to the Oval Office. But his supporters went to the Capitol. And so they went to the Capitol, and because from what I've been hearing in different reports were that the Capitol was in a position of manpower to protect against a First Amendment riot or a First Amendment protest, people that would just protest peacefully. There was no preparation for a potential riot or anything other than that. And so the level of Capitol Police was really, really low. And the amount of pro-Trump folks was really, really high. And they outmatched them, darn near 4-1 at times. And so the pro-Trump folks overwhelmed the barricades. And there are some images circling online that they were even let in. There were some Capitol Police that were taking selfies with some of these folks that stormed the Capitol. So if that's the case, you look up and within an hour or so, they had infiltrated the Capitol during the midst in which a lot of government officials are in there at the time, including Vice President Mike Pence, Speaker of the House Nancy, Mitch McConnell, and Chuck Schumer. All these folks are in the Capitol at the time trying to certify the election. And before they had a chance to separate and go to their separate chambers, darn near, to discuss the objections to the Arizona objection for their electoral votes, they had breached the Capitol. And if I'm not mistaken, it was around 120, 115, somewhere around there, right? And what was crazy is the fact that at that point, they had began to have to pause business because of the breach, and they had to go into secured bunkers, and it became mayhem after that. And so many different stories and so many different images, and if you've been watching the news, you've seen them. One of the things that I've been talking about and that I've noticed is the conspiratorial side that I think it's deeper, and I think most mainstream folks can't really speak to it yet. But if you've looked across the internet enough and kind of evaluated some of the stories that you can actually, either corroborate or you can view as good information, there was, in my opinion, a conspiracy to cause the response to this attack on the Capitol, cause it to be much, much slower. So let me lay it out to you. And some of this is reporting coming from NBC, and a lot of it is very interesting in the fact that you had the Speaker of the House, Chuck Schumer, all in a bunker, along with Steny Hoyer, the number 2 top Democrat in the House. They're all hunkered down. And what was crazy is the news coverage of this whole event. You had mainstream media watching and covering, and the main takeaway during that whole entire time is, where is the security? Where is the backup, the federal agents, the riot police, the National Guard? Where is it? Because the Capitol is not a building you should be able to overthrow with a couple thousand people. They plan and work on that kind of stuff, and they acknowledge when you've got that amount of government officials, that high degree of the government in one building working on one specific task, just like addresses to the nation and all these things, that is a high stakes event. Yet there wasn't enough to handle the protest that was outside. And so here's what I noticed is that when it became evident that the crowd was overtaking the Capitol Police, there was no rush to add National Guards and help. And so what has come out over the last few, hours or so, and what a lot of the pundits are asking is, where was that backup? Where was the federal agents? Where was the National Guard? And what's crazy is the story goes that Steny Hoyer, the second in command in the House, ended up having to place a call from the bunker to, because he's a representative from the state of Maryland, which is right next door to Washington, D.C., and he has the number of the mayor, the governor of the state, and he calls him up, Larry Hogan, and he calls him up and he says, hey, can you send the National Guard here? We see no federal agents, the Capitol Police is overran, and we're hunkered in a bunker, and we need help. And he's willing to do it. He's open to. But the trick of the matter is, Maryland as a state don't have jurisdiction and the authority to send his National Guard into Washington, D.C. That's something that has to be done by the Secretary of Defense. There's channels that you got to go through, and they've got to approve it. And if they don't approve it, they can't come. And the Secretary of Defense is a position appointed within the Trump administration. And if you remember, Mark Esper was fired by Donald Trump back in November. Granted, he's fired a lot of people lately. But one of the things that people have said is how anemic the government is because of the amount of turnover, right? But then they wonder who and how do they appoint these folks just out of nowhere, it seems like. So they end up replacing them with a Chris Williams, I think his name is. And you've got the Secretary of Defense not calling back the mayor or the governor of Maryland. Because if he doesn't call him back, or if nobody in his chain of command at the Secretary of Defense office calls back the governor, they can't send in troops. And so at the time when he spoke with Hoyer in the bunker with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, he says, yeah, I've got people on standby. I've got hundreds of folks, National Guard ready to go, but he can't come into the district without approval, without clearance. It took hours upon hours before, because he was trying to call the whole time, and he got no response, no return phone calls. And what happened is, about 2 to 3 hours later, Ryan McCarthy, the Secretary of Arms, finally calls him, which is weird in and of itself because he's not even in that chain of approval that they needed. However, he was within the Army branch, so he assumed that he could at least validate his group coming into the District of Columbia. But that's the point, is that the Trump administration that governs over the Secretary of Defense and Homeland Security and those things, if they are so stymied and have had replacement after replacement of Trump loyalists and people that he can trust that's in these positions, then in a crisis such as this, in the District of Columbia, when you can't call in National Guards without the approval of the administration, when the crisis is a part of Trump's own doing, and the people that is causing the crisis is in lockstep with the desires of the president, then you've got yourself a very dangerous situation where Donald can incite violence and can't no other state come to help. So when the images of the rioters taking over the Capitol are going across national news and media, and everybody's wondering where is the backup to fend off 10,000 Trump supporters in the District of Columbia, they're not coming. They're not coming in an expedient amount of fashion. And by the time that they did arrive, and yes, they were called in, and which is weird because the reports are that Donald was salivating over the fact that the Capitol was being overrun and the business of the Capitol was being delayed. He didn't want to send in the National Guard. It took Kelly McEnany to release a press statement saying that they have called the National Guard in. Even then, the call to request backup was almost an hour to hour and a half earlier. So our Capitol can get overran, and before there's enough backup, it's an hour to an hour and a half later? Do you know how much destruction and damage can be done in an hour to an hour and a half? Apparently it was enough to find Nancy Pelosi's office and pop a squat. It was enough for a mountain man with the bare chest and the bear coat to run along the dais and take pictures. And that's a very dangerous situation. And so if you are watching it unfold and you're salivating in the idea that these are your supporters and you're okay with it, and it takes back channels around the president in order to get National Guard troops on the ground to back up and clear out the Capitol. It takes the Secretary of Army to give the okay, not the typical Secretary of Defense. Like think about it. By the time the Secretary of Defense called the troops, it was like 6 something o'clock in the afternoon. The Capitol was overtaken by 1:30, 2 o'clock, somewhere around that time frame. That's a long time for the capital of the United States government to be left to fend for itself. And again, in my opinion, it's all part of that seditious plan by the Trump administration. They wanted to go up to the Capitol and disturb Capitol business without much resistance. And once they got there, they wanted to make some noise. So think about that. We're in a country of laws. Insurrection is a crime. To stop federal government business, to intrude and trespass on the Capitol. That's a crime that Merrick Garland and the incoming administration, see, that's one thing about this whole situation too, is that there's a new administration to be coming into office, and a situation like this where you're dealing with insurrection and sedition charges that I don't believe will be taken lightly. One thing is that Joe Biden has made it a point to make sure the American people know that he's not going to be tipping the scales and weighing into department decisions in the Justice Department. But one thing about nominating somebody like Merrick Garland is the fact that you can better believe that they are going to prosecute to the law and make sure that nobody is above it. So I guarantee you, or I will project to you, what I'm going to say can be controversial to a degree, and it's not in an effort to be controversial, because I'm not trying to be. But again, I'm going to put my pundit hat on and project here, based on what's in public knowledge, is that because he will no longer be covered by immunity and he will no longer be protected by the senators and House representatives, as a private citizen, he's going to be exposed to a tremendous amount of legal trouble. Because what he did at that rally before they went up to the Capitol was incitement of an insurrection. And that all day and twice on Sunday is a crime that would serve jail time to a normal citizen. The only saving grace he may have is the fact that the look of a previous president getting indicted could be scary, especially to the 74 million people that voted for him. So, take that for what you will. Like I said, just a short video vlog that I wanted to get off my chest before the week ended. We do have some other interesting takes on some current events coming up this weekend. So if time permits, I'll try to shoot it. In the meantime, if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, share it, like it, because I like you. So take care. I will see you soon. Dwight Alex Douglas. Signing off. 22.